Hi, this is Matt Gressick. Welcome to another episode of Brick and Mortar.
I'm Eric Ebersole. Happy to join Matt today as the other host. And we're going to be interviewing, as we always do, people who've been inside a school building.
Yeah, and I'm excited about this episode. I actually wore a special shirt for it, for the blueprint. And we have...
Our kids can't wait.
For the blueprint, exactly. And it's Jennifer Lynch. And we're going to start off with our very first question. And that is, who are you and why did you choose to get involved in education?
Well, thank you. I am Jennifer Lynch. I am currently the Senior Policy Advisor for Education and Workforce Development for County Executive Olszewski in Baltimore County. I am also a Senate-appointed member of the Accountability and Implementation Board that oversees the full implementation of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future.
Very exciting concept.
Very exciting, very exciting. I am a mother of 5. And an educator at heart. And you asked, why did I come to education? Well, I come from a family of educators. It's in my DNA. Both of my parents are educators. My extended family are educators. I've never had a family dinner that didn't include a conversation about education. Since I was born, I think the first place I went after I was born, other than maybe at my grandparents' house, was to a school to be shown off Simba style once I was born.
Simba style.
That's funny. It produces a wonderful image.
That's right. That's
Especially
right.
with your dad.
Yes.
So I think it has always been part of who I am and part of my value system. But I think it's important, especially for young people today, to understand it was not a straight arrow for me into education.
Cool.
While it was always part of what, I played teacher as a young child, I never really saw myself as being an educator, didn't see myself as being a teacher. Graduated, went to college, didn't really know what I wanted to do for my first couple of years in college. Everything seemed so interesting to me that to pick just one thing was difficult. And so I ended up getting a degree in psychology. I was working in retail management at the time, and that was much more profitable. Mm-hmm. And so I stayed in that for a while. And it wasn't really until after I had my own children that I was looking for a way to have my day-to-day life have more meaning, to have my career have more meaning. And so that's when I started having conversations with fellow educators of, I wish I could just combine my love of psychology, which I had my degree in, but I'm so passionate about education and children and how do I lend support? And that's when the pathway of school psychology first presented itself to me. And so that was my entree back into the school system, was as a school psychologist.
And I think it's great you say about your life having meaning. I've talked with people who say, well, other teachers, we don't have much money. Some of my friends can spend lavishly. I said, yeah, but when they work and they make that money, is that a meaningful part of their life, or is it just the money that they can spend on other things? Right. As a teacher, I always felt like my day was great, and I had a little time and a little money to do things. But if I wasn't rich, it added a great deal of meaning to my life. I think that's an interesting observation by you.
Yeah, and I think every person has to decide what it is that they want out of their career, and people want and value different things. And for me, I had tried some I'd been a small business owner, I had been in a nonprofit, I had been in retail, and it just became more and more clear that I really wanted to be impactful and service driven in my career. And so I kind of came to it through a winding road. I came to my current position in a winding road. It certainly has always been a passion of mine too, to think more broadly about education. I didn't go into education as a teacher. Yeah. I went there as a school psychologist into then administration. And that is really where I am in such awe of our teachers. They are amazing, amazing practitioners and experts, right? And that is amazing, and that is a skill and a talent that I admire. And I think what I bring to the table is that sort of broader perspective.
In full disclosure, Dr. Lynch, among all the things she's described, was the principal at a local elementary school here, and we benefit by her having made that decision in a big way.
We do very much.
So in your days in education, what was, and you can choose any one of these that you want, what's your most challenging, funniest, most rewarding moment? Recount for us something that sticks out in your memory.
One story.
Just one, huh?
Yeah, that's all you
One
get.
story.
Oh, I only get one story. I can't do two.
We probably couldn't stop.
So I will tell you two, because I'll tell you a really fast one. One of the funnier ones was when I was a new principal. They duct taped me to the wall for some sort of an event. I waved goodbye to the children. It was the day before spring break. Teachers cut me down. I go home.
I was hoping that last part,
Yes.
teachers cut you down.
Cut me down. I go home. The next morning, I get an email from a parent that says her child is distraught because he thinks I'm not going to eat because I'm
You're
still
stuck to the wall.
stuck at the wall. So,
Well, I had the same concern.
so I had to take a picture and put it on social media and send it to them to show that I was home and it was okay.
Painesville cares.
That was one of my funnier. But I think, something that really stuck out to me thinking about this question was I was a principal in two really interesting times. One was when Trump was elected president, and one was the start of COVID. And very unique and different in very different ways. But the interesting thing about when Trump was first elected was that I knew I was going to the next day, and I was an elementary school principal, so you don't think about the impact that national politics has on little people. But I knew that I would be coming into school the next day, and I would have many families who were very afraid. They were immigrant families. I would have families that were really excited about what had just happened in this election, and they would be really exuberant about that.
Celebratory.
Celebratory. And that we would have families who would think that the world was ending, and that, and children absorb that and feel that and regurgitate that.
And we've had several people on who talk about trusting educators.
Right.
And what you're putting across there is that you need to strike a balance between many different ways of seeing that outcome.
Correct.
And that's what educators have to do, and they do it well, no matter how they're feeling personally.
Right. Correct. And it was about how do we continue to build community internally in this house, and how do we continue to help our larger, broader community come together as an integrated and supportive community in the middle of all of this sort of external strife. And that is not always difficult, but that is really the role of administration, is to build community internally and externally to the brick and mortar.
Right.
And so seeing that this was coming in the next couple of weeks, I had conversations with my teachers who were such great partners in this work. And then on that day, we did a lot of community building activities across the entire school to just sort of say, this is who we are going to be. We're going to celebrate each other for our individuality. We're going to be safe. And in no way bringing politics into the mix. It was never about any political statement. It was just about community building. And I think it was really impactful, but it had to happen that day.
Right.
In order to sort of protect what we had built together
Everybody
as a
was so raw.
community. Yes.
And this is why you need to trust educators.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
They're fair, and they'll do things for the right reasons, and they'll try to meet all students where they are.
Right.
And I think that's what you're talking about there. That's great.
We'll cover the next one too.
Yeah, why not? Okay, so you're important to us in two ways, and you've laid them both out. One of them is your former elementary school principal, and the other one is that we'll get to that in a second. The accountability and accountability and implementation board. If we'd have known that, we'd have named it something different. So what are the challenges that you hear among your colleagues who were administrators? What are the new things that are kind of facing them these days, and that you see facing them?
So there's a couple things depending on sort of where you are in the system. I think in the classroom, day to day in the classroom, our teachers continue to be concerned about behavior. I think that how are we managing a new world? We are sort of in a situation where we have racial tensions, we have different mental health issues, we have impacts of gun violence, and we have different disciplinary structures and laws in place that really dictate sort of how we're managing and how we're thinking about discipline in the classroom. So at that level, that continues to be something that on a day-to-day basis, our schools are still grappling with, as to how do we make sure every student has a place and feels included, but every student is safe and can learn in the classroom. And that is a really difficult balance to strike right now.
And in my years as looking at school principals, I always felt like the buck stopped with them. From above, they were getting all sorts of instructions, and from below, there were lots of families and kids that were really in the middle.
Correct.
and really in a tight spot, but usually they relished it.
Well, I think that's right. I think, administrators are always in it for the children, for the families. How do I take sometimes policies that seem big and hard to understand from a student or a parent's perspective, and how do I make meaning out of it, and how do I make it make sense in my community so it doesn't look the same in every school building that you enter. But that is a challenge. And I think right now, administrators and central office personnel, we're sort of managing what this new normal is. We're managing the incredible
Another one.
Politicization.
There you go.
Yes.
We'll edit that, correct?
Yeah. No,
That's fine. That's fine.
That's what makes it great.
That's fine.
That's what we love about it.
We are dealing with really extreme politics influencing in a way that frankly a lot of our families who are engaged in it don't even really understand what's happening. So how do we bring it down to the day-to-day, what's happening in the classroom to keep children safe and to keep them learning?
Right, and the state is starting to pay attention. We have some money set aside, over $100 million, for something called Consortium of Coordinated Community Supports to support schools in students' behavioral health, so that they can be available to learn, which was a problem before. And
Right.
after COVID, we're struggling. It's even greater.
That's right. And there are certainly, there are continuums of behaviors from, and we have to understand that some, are really dangerous and unsafe. And we have to be, sort of finding new ways to address that so that every student can feel safe in the classroom. Every student has that right. Every student has the right to learn. We also, we don't have any children who don't deserve a great education and who don't deserve a chance. There are no, like throwaway children.
Exactly. Right.
Every single
Exactly.
child deserves to have that opportunity to learn. And we can't underestimate how much there is bias in education and in these institutional systems. And so two things can be
I
true
love
at one
that.
time.
That we can't underestimate.
great
That's
point.
a great
Yeah.
point. I
Great
want to
point.
emphasize that after you said it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't add anything to it, but it's important for us.
Yeah,
Right.
it's two things at one time. It's we do have behaviors that we need to address, and that's not okay. And we do have to understand that there are other influences that are impacting all of these things that we have to be very careful about what our solutions look like.
What is that? It's a phone call.
It's a phone.
Imagine we have listeners out there calling in right now. Who have we got?
Let's see here.
Hello, caller.
Hi, I'm just calling in because I'm a little confused about school governance in Maryland.
Well,
We have a state board of
So
education.
relevant.
First of all, caller, tell us your name.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my name is Andy McIntyre.
Oh, Andy McIntyre.
I know an Andy McIntyre.
I teach right next to an Andy McIntyre for over a decade.
It's a common name. It's probably not the same guy.
Has a great podcast
Right.
named Silver Linings. So
He does have a good podcast,
Great
doesn't he,
podcast.
that guy? I don't know if you're him, but there's a guy with your same name that has this outstanding podcast called Silver Linings. They take bad movies or movies that have been panned and they find what's good about them.
Yeah, exactly.
You should listen to it.
All right. So what's your question, caller?
I'll give it a listen for sure. I think I saw the new episodes come out every Monday.
Every Monday.
Every Monday.
It's
Hear
so
that?
well informed about it.
All right. So what's your question, caller?
Yeah. So again, I know that we have a state board of education in Maryland, but I understand that you're a member of another governing body called the Accountability and Implementation Board. Can you help me by sorting out what each does, particularly this new AIB board?
It's amazing how our callers, they almost anticipate us. That was
Super
what I was
intelligent.
going to go to next. They're just like omniscient, aren't they? All right, well, thank you for the call, and we'll get Dr. Lynch to answer here.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, no
care.
problem.
So that's a really good question, and a lot of people have asked that question. So the Accountability and Implementation Board was really designed by our General Assembly to make sure that the blueprint for Maryland's future, which is this incredibly large, complex bill that oversees all of education and is transformative. It's something that is a national model right now that Maryland really should be proud of. But there are many components, and it is very complex. And so the Accountability and Implementation Board has the governance to oversee that the blueprint is fully implemented. And so there is some oversight of both MSDE and other state offices and departments that would help to implement that the blueprint. And so that we put a comprehensive implementation plan that basically distills everything in that bill that has to happen at the MSDE level with our CTE committees at our local governance levels. And we make sure that everybody understands what's in the bill and what has to happen for full implementation. Then we sort of ensure that it is being implemented. We collect and gather data, see what's working and what doesn't, make recommendations to the General Assembly if we're seeing patterns of things that are not working, really work in tandem with education at all levels to make sure that we're doing what's best and we're being responsive.
And
wonderful.
And so, I'm in the legislature. Everybody knows that. I say it enough times. But we really felt it was important, given the financial commitment that we were going to make with Blueprint. Ultimately, we were just starting making that commitment now, that we have accountability. A lot of people talk about throwing money at education. That's a phrase that gets my hackles up, for sure. The idea is that we're going to be injecting money in certain places. And there are pillars. There are 5 pillars that talk about early childhood education and community schools, essentially, low socioeconomic and meeting communities. But we needed to be sure that we had some accountability. My question for you is, how did you come to be on the board? Tell us. People are going to say, well, how does she get to be on? And so let's just give us a sense of how that's done.
So this was the inaugural board, so it's our first board, and so there was information that was put out about asking for people who would like to apply. You have to have certain criteria in order to be an accountability and implementation board member. That's unique to a lot of boards and something that I think it really enhances the strength of our board, and that our board members all come with some level of expertise in the field that will help oversee the implementation, whether it's understanding what it's like to be in a classroom. We have a classroom teacher or an administrator. We have, somebody who has understood community college for a very long time, data governance. So we have a variety of experts. So I applied, we went through a process.
Right, and there's a layer there because the leaders of Maryland appoint an appointment board, which then appoints you.
Correct.
So that adds a layer of, reduces the politics of it somewhat, I think.
Correct. And then you have to be, approved.
Right.
By
the Senate.
By the Senate.
Yeah.
So, there are layers upon layers. I really.
And by the way, good on you for getting through all those letters. Creeping is a bad
because
word.
There's a lot.
Yes, and I have to thank County Executive Olszewski, who, when I first presented this to him, was incredibly supportive. Thinks that this is such important work, and was really supportive in me pursuing this. And I think that's an important element as well.
Good.
Yeah, I'm going to cover the next 2 questions.
Why don't we jump ahead to?
You want to jump ahead to the mascot?
Yep, let's go to the end.
Okay, I actually wanted to point out also a little interesting, 3 degrees of separation. I actually am currently living and bought the house from your dad that I'm living in, and I know you rented that with your husband.
It's a great house.
It's a great house.
So without saying the dad's name, we're going to tell you that he worked at Lansdowne High School. He was the principal of Catonsville, and briefly was the county executive of Baltimore County.
It's
a weird.
I love that house.
It's
still one of my favorite houses.
Yeah, and we love it too. And it's the location is just fantastic. But anyways, getting to our last question, we're gonna have some fun with our last question. What mascot? If you were queen for a day and you could change any mascot of a school you either were principal at or a school psychologist went to, what would you change?
Well, Matt, I can't change any mascots. Let's see. I was a Catonsville Comet.
That's a great mascot.
What's better than a Catonsville Comet?
I don't read a lot of places. I was a Catonsville Comet.
Got to be a Catonsville Comet. I was a Towson Tiger. Nothing better than a Towson Tiger. Yeah. I don't understand why the Terps made it to be such a great thing, but we all do fear the turtle.
Yes.
So that's an interesting one. A hedgehog is an interesting choice.
This is Hillcrest Elementary
School. Yeah. So that is an interesting choice, and yet I feel like we've made it work, and I don't know that I would advocate for a change because I think That's what we're known for now. We're the hedgies.
The hedgies, right.
And
Such
I
an
think that's
AIB
motivated.
answer.
We discussed the motivation, whether it was a video game or what it was exactly. But it's got good alliteration, so it's hard.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just like Catonsville Commons does.
we've
Such a
had-
great AIB answer. We're just going to make things even better. We'll emphasize them even more.
We're going to emphasize what's
Fear
good
the
about what's
turtle.
going on now.
I don't know why a terrapin made it to be so powerful, but it's really impressive.
Well, sometimes
I wouldn't change it to
Well,
say
that's
that
what you
for
do.
anything.
What you're pointing out is that a good mascot gets made into something better. Fear the turtle,
Right.
and the hedgies and things like that. That we'll stick with that then.
And both of you as comets have a huge impact on education, and
Yes.
I want to thank you for that
Thank you.
impact.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming on the show. It's just we try to show as much gratitude as we can for people coming on, because there's a lot of educators right now that don't feel that, and we just want to say thank you to you for coming on the show and your dedication to kids in Baltimore County.
In so many
thank
ways,
you for having
you're impactful on so many levels. We're grateful that you came on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So tune in again in 2 weeks. We'll have another episode.
Yep. Take care.
Okay.